Now it's time for our Sunday talk, and the title of today's talk is This Too is from God. And that title is based on this series of affirmations, and they go this way. This too is good. This too is from God. This too shall bless me. And that can be applied to anything that's challenging you or not. It can be applied to illness or relationships or prosperity, because a person who knows they're one with God knows that everything is from God and everything is good and everything is a blessing. These ideas reflect a set of base assumptions about the nature of the world and our place in it. They do not agree with many common beliefs and fears, for we live in a world of fear. We believe we can be victims of all sorts of things, of criminals and viruses and accidents and random fate. But unity teaches the law of mind action, that thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. When we take unity's teachings to their deepest meaning, we realize we are never victims, that we always choose our experience. Perhaps we're choosing it from the level of our higher selves, because our earthly selves are only the tip of the iceberg. Our consciousness engulfs much more than that. Our higher selves are still us. We still have free will. Last week we discussed developing double vision. Double vision. How we can perceive a world that is dangerous and filled with injustice and suffering, while at the same time we can be aware of the greater truth of creation. And reconciling these two visions may be the path to ascension. Double vision may also be called that blessed ambiguity. How I know in my heart of heart that these things are true, and yet there is still a human part of me that acts differently. We are humans. We are born into race consciousness, and we inherit a set of beliefs and ideas that form our mass experience. Yet, if we can but recognize that these beliefs are invalid, and if we can hold to a set of principles that more accurately define reality and define divinity and define humanity, then our experience will mirror those beliefs. That is our mission. It is easier said than done. At least from our human viewpoint, it seems like it's easier said than done. Even amongst truth students, this is what people who practice unity are called, truth students. There seems to be an acceptance of cause and effect that denies our basic principles. We live in times that are intended to expose the opposing ideas that we embrace. I saw something on Facebook yesterday that said we are in the sunset times, that when you're reaching the end of an era, it's like when you reach the end of a day, and the sunset is the most brilliant part of the day with the brightest colors and the brightest light from the sun. And in this sunset era, our beliefs are shining more brightly than they have, and they are shining that so that we can recognize them. A Course in Miracles teaches the truth you don't necessarily want to hear. It opens the curtain and exposes the little person behind it, disguised as a powerful wizard. A Course in Miracles steadfastly explains the illusion of the world and how to end it. I'm going to read a few excerpts from Lesson 136 in A Course in Miracles. Sickness is a decision. It is not a thing that happens to you quite unsought, which makes you weak and brings you suffering. It is a choice you make, a plan you lay. No one can heal unless he understands what purpose sickness seems to serve. So I'm going to tell you one of my favorite stories. This is about Priscilla Richard. She was the head librarian when I was in school and in seminary at Unity Village. Priscilla and I are still friends. We're Facebook friends now, and I have her permission to share her story. Right after I was ordained, I went on a divine feminine tour of France, and Priscilla was one of the Unity ladies that was on the tour. And one day she and I were walking down the streets of Paris when she said, "You know, I'm 50 years old and I've never had a mammogram. And I really don't know if I should get one or not. It's one of those Unity beliefs that we have to practice double vision about." But she decided when she got home to get one. And they found a tumor and they said she needed a mastectomy. So she had a few weeks before the surgery was scheduled, and she spent that time praying and meditating and reading spiritual books. And one night, a few days before the surgery, she couldn't sleep, and she got up in the middle of the night and she was praying, and she knew without question that the cancer was gone. She knew that she was cured. So then she thought, well, what do I do about this surgery I have scheduled? So she took that into prayer also, and what she received was, "You are cured. But if you do not have the surgery, you will not be healed." Interesting to think there's a difference between being cured and being healed. So she chose to have the surgery, and the doctor was supposed to call her with the pathology report afterwards and didn't call for like a couple of weeks. So Priscilla finally called the doctor, who said, I couldn't call because I didn't know what to say because we couldn't find any cancer. And Priscilla said, "I know." So she and the doctor talked for over an hour, and the doctor, once being introduced to Unity's background in spiritual healing, became active in a breast cancer support group at the Light Center, which is still a retreat center, a Unity retreat center near Kansas City. I went to see Priscilla at her house when she got home from the hospital, and she was a different person. Her face was soft. She was sweet. Even her hair was softer. And she told me that when she was born, she had an older brother who was a special needs child. And she herself was an unplanned baby. Her brother took all of her parents' time and energy. And she seemed to know from birth that she better not ask for too much. They say she didn't even cry as a baby. And she grew up without having that nurturing until she went to the hospital for the cancer surgery. And the nurses were so good to her, and they babied her, and they mothered her. And when she got home, her adult daughter came to stay with her during her recovery and took care of her. And for the first time in her life, she was the one that other people took care of. And she said it was like this big empty space got filled. And it changed her forever. It healed her. This was the healing. She quit her job at the village and moved to Colorado, Rocky Mountain High, with her daughter. So now notice that based on our old, limited, erroneous ideas, we may think that the doctor should somehow be blamed. It was an unnecessary surgery, as it turned out. Or we may think, oh, poor Priscilla, she had this unnecessary operation, blah, 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 blah. And yet, there were much more important gifts to be obtained. The doctor started working with a unity group, making an aperture, an opening between Western and Eastern thought when it comes to healing and medicine. Priscilla was able to heal her childhood wounds and went on to create a new life for herself. This is an amazing story, all the more so because it's a true story and one I know personally. And with all of this being said, I need to share with you that I have been diagnosed with breast cancer. It's not my first rodeo. I kind of crack up because even the doctors and nurses say to me, this is not your first rodeo. I am scheduled for a lumpectomy and radiation, and unless they find more problems, that's probably all I will need. We expect this surgery to be the week of July 4th. When I had breast cancer the first time in 2008, I had no question but that I was going to see a surgeon. I was already a true student. It never crossed my mind to try to heal it through prayer and meditation. But after that, a few years later, I had a little skin cancer right here. And I had it biopsied, and they said it was a basal cell carcinoma and that they needed to remove it. And I thought, you know, this is very low risk cancer, skin cancer, and I think that I'll work on it in my hammock, which is where I like to meditate. And I did. There were a few weeks before the surgery was scheduled, and it healed. It was no longer a sore. By the time the date for the surgery came, it was a scar. It was just a little dimple, about as big as a BB. And I, kind of like Priscilla, I had to decide, was I going to have the surgery? I knew the cancer was gone. And I thought, I'll be telling this story for the rest of my career. And it's going to be a much better story if I have the surgery and the doctor does not find any cancer. So I went, had it removed, they found no cancer. So this time, I've got double vision. I am using some of the healing practices we've taught in our church, the medical assistance program. I have my hammock up, and oh, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. It's my favorite place in the world. I think that understanding what being cured and what being healed mean is the important part. And I know that this is an opportunity for self-transformation. There can be many different outcomes to this disease, but they will, whatever, be good. And they will, whatever, bless me. I wanted to share a couple of my favorite healing quotes with you. One is, isn't it good that I am now strong enough that this has come up to be healed? And the other one is, for everything that has happened in my life, I am grateful. And for everything that is yet to come, I am willing. So I want to close with one of my favorite little quotes from Pilgrim on Tinker Creek by Annie Dillard. This will be new to maybe two of you, but the rest of you will recognize it. It doesn't hurt to hear it again. It's my fave. She wrote, There is always an enormous temptation in all of life to diddle around, making itsy-bitsy friends and meals and journeys for itsy-bitsy years on end. The world is wilder than that in all directions, more dangerous and bitter, more extravagant and bright. We are making hay when we should be making whoopee. We are raising tomatoes when we should be raising Cain or raising Lazarus. My prayer for all of us is that we do not let the itsy-bitsy distractions of life prevent us from beholding and expressing the divine in every experience. And thus ends the lesson. God bless you all.